You want her to regret losing you? Good. That means you're no longer begging, you're no longer chasing, you're done trying to prove your worth to someone who failed to recognize it. And that's exactly when the tables start to turn. Most guys have it completely backwards. They think that the way to make her miss them is to show how much they care, to send long emotional texts, to call late at night just to say they still think about her, to hope that if they're good enough, maybe, just maybe, she'll come back. But women don't regret losing men who wait around. They regret losing men who outgrow them. You see, a woman doesn't feel regret because you told her how much she meant to you. She feels regret when she sees the man you've become without her, when she realizes that the very attention she once took for granted now belongs to someone else, when she sees you thriving, focused, mysterious, untouchable. That's when she starts thinking, damn, I messed up. And here's the part most guys never understand. Women are not wired to chase validation. They're wired to chase value. When you become a man of value, everything shifts. She doesn't remember the sweet words. She remembers the power you now carry, the calm confidence in your silence, the strength in your absence. Let me ask you something. Have you ever gone quiet on a girl after things ended? And out of nowhere, she reached out? Maybe a random text, maybe a like on your Instagram story. Maybe she asked how you've been. That's not coincidence. That's biology. That's psychology. When you remove your energy from her life, she starts to feel that vacuum. And nature hates a vacuum. But here's the trick, and this is something only men who understand female psychology get right. You can't fake it. You can't pretend to move on just to get a reaction. Women have emotional radars that can smell neediness even in silence. If your silence is just a loud cry for attention, she'll feel it, and it will only push her further away. But if your silence is real, if it's backed by a shift in your identity, if you're genuinely moving forward, building your life, reclaiming your power, that's when she starts spiraling. She'll check your profile. She'll replay old memories. She'll stalk your stories in the middle of the night, wondering who you're with, where you've been, and most importantly, why you're not chasing her anymore. That's the guaranteed reaction, because deep down, every woman has this fear: being forgotten, being replaced. And if you were the kind of man who made her feel safe, desired, special, and now you're gone, completely, emotionally, mentally, that absence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, she starts to question herself. Was I enough? Did I mess up something real? This is the power of masculine presence, and even more, the power of masculine absence. Neil Strauss in The Game talked about social proof, how women are biologically drawn to men who are desired by others. But what most men miss is that the ultimate social proof is detachment. When you are so focused on your mission, your evolution, your grind, that you become unavailable, that's when her instincts kick in. Mystery triggers obsession. Certainty kills it. A man who's always available is a man who loses value. A man who's hard to read, who's evolving, who doesn't explain himself. That man becomes unforgettable. And here's where it gets even deeper. Regret isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. She won't always message you. She won't always say she misses you. But she'll feel it. When she hears that song that reminds her of you. When she walks past a spot where you both laughed. When she's with another guy, and he just doesn't make her feel the way you did. That's when the regret hits like a wave. And there's nothing she can do to undo the choice she made. But you're no longer concerned with that. Because you're not here to get her back. You're here to become the kind of man she never deserved in the first place. Now that you're detached, now that you're rising, something wild starts to happen. Women, not just her, but others too, start sensing that shift in your energy. You're no longer reactive, you're selective. You're no longer emotionally available to just anyone. And that energy, it's intoxicating. Because here's what women want, but will rarely admit. A man who doesn't need them to feel whole. If you were wounded when she left, let that be your awakening. Most transformations are born from heartbreak. Use that pain as fuel. Channel it into the gym, into your money, into your purpose. Let the silence between you grow louder, not because you want her to notice, but because you're too focused to care. When you become a man who doesn't chase, not out of pride but out of purpose, she'll chase the man she once walked away from, but by then, it might already be too late. And now something even more powerful begins to unfold, because when a man stops chasing and starts evolving, he doesn't just trigger regret in her. He becomes magnetic to women in general, not because he's trying, not because he's performing, but because he's tapped into the one thing women can't fake and can't resist: grounded, masculine energy. This isn't about arrogance. It's about certainty. It's the way you walk into a room and don't scan for validation. It's the way you speak slower, stand taller, listen more than you talk. That calm presence tells the world, and her, that you know who you are, that you no longer seek approval, especially not from someone who walked away. And that's exactly what flips the emotional dynamic. Suddenly she starts remembering the man you were becoming when she left. She compares it to the men she's met since. And most of them? They're chasing. They're eager. They're trying to impress her. They lack the depth, the quiet confidence, the unshakable core you've now cultivated. That contrast burns into her memory. What most men don't realize is that women rarely feel regret right away. They rationalize, they tell themselves they made the right decision. They go out with friends, post the highlight reels, maybe even see someone new. But over time, the initial euphoria fades. And then, the silence creeps in. The excitement dies down. And that's when your image comes back, stronger, sharper, more attractive than before. Not because of what you said, but because of who you've become in her absence. And here's a truth no one wants to admit. Women fall for the man who surprises them, the man they couldn't fully figure out, the one who left a question mark in their mind. You want to create that regret? Stop being predictable. Stop being the nice guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, hoping she'll love him back. That never works. Predictable men are safe, but they don't stir a woman's core. It's the man who evolves in silence, the one who disappears not to punish, but to level up. That's the man who haunts her memory. And understand this, real regret is slow. It builds in layers. First, she wonders what you're doing. Then, she notices you haven't reached out. After that, curiosity turns into a low-key obsession. She checks your stories, your posts, your friends. She asks herself, why doesn't he care? And the worst part for her, the part that really messes with her, is realizing she no longer has control. Because before she could always get a reaction from you. One message and you were there, one breadcrumb and you followed. But now, nothing. Silence, strength, distance. You've changed the rules of the game. You're not the same man she walked away from. And that's what makes her regret so painful. Not just losing you, but losing the version of herself that had access to you. Now she has to watch someone else experience the side of you she took for granted. Someone else laughs at your jokes, feels your hands, sees your eyes when you're locked in, and that burns. But your focus is no longer on proving anything to her. That's over. Now you're living the way men were meant to live, building something that doesn't revolve around anyone's approval, creating a world where you are the center, a world where she is not the prize. Your purpose is. And when a man finds his purpose, he becomes unshakable. Women sense it. They're drawn to it like heat. Not because he's trying to attract them, but because his energy demands attention without a word. That's what she starts to crave. The energy she once had, now gone. The intimacy she thought would always be hers, now replaced. And here's the irony. The more she wants it back, the less she can access it. Because you've moved. You've shifted. And whether she ever reaches out or not, one thing is certain. She will never forget the man who turned his pain into power. You didn't lose her. She lost you. And now, she knows it. There comes a point when a man doesn't just let go of the woman. He lets go of the version of himself that needed her. And that moment is liberation. Because now, everything changes. You no longer react. You no longer fantasize. You observe. You execute. You evolve. And she senses it, even from a distance. She may not know what exactly is different, but she feels the shift. That energetic thread she once pulled on, gone. That emotional access she once had, blocked. And that's what drives her mad, because a woman can only control what she can feel. And when you become emotionally invisible, she's left trying to solve a puzzle with no clues. This is where true power begins. When you stop playing the role she expected you to play. You're no longer the nice guy who waited. You're no longer the guy she could call at 2 a.m. and expect comfort. You're the man who chose himself. And nothing commands more respect, or more regret, than that. She'll start to romanticize the past, not because it was perfect, but because it was hers. And now, she's watching a version of you become someone else's future. Maybe you haven't even met this new woman yet. Maybe you're still in your grind. But in her mind, the story's already written. Because she knows, deep down, a man like you doesn't stay single for long. You've cultivated presence. You've harnessed restraint. You've owned your silence. And silence, when it comes from power, not pain, echoes louder than any declaration of love. Every time she checks your stories and sees you living, not posting to provoke, but genuinely enjoying your life, she spirals just a little deeper, because the guy she thought would always orbit her world has built his own solar system. And she's not in it anymore. You didn't block her. You didn't beg. You simply disappeared. Not into loneliness, but into excellence. This is when she starts to imagine scenarios. Who are you with? Does she laugh like I did? Do you touch her the same way? Does she know what I had to lose to make him this way? And here's the catch. She'll never admit this. She'll post more, smile bigger, act like she's thriving. But behind that screen is a girl who's realizing she overplayed her hand. Because while she was waiting for you to chase her one more time, you were building a life too powerful to look back. Let's make one thing clear. Regret isn't revenge. You're not doing this to hurt her. You're doing this because you finally understand. You were never meant to beg for what you bring to the table. You bring presence, you bring depth, you bring masculine energy that isn't needy but solid and rare. Women feel that. They crave it. And when they lose it, it sticks. What used to be just another guy in her inbox is now the one that got away. Not because of luck, not because you got hot, but because you outgrew the emotional cage she left you in. That's the difference between healing and hiding. Most guys pretend they're over her. They post flashy pics, they flirt in public, but inside they're still waiting, still hoping, still emotionally handcuffed to someone who already walked away. But not you. You faced the mirror. You took the hit. You embraced the emptiness and let it forge you. And now, the version of you that's emerging, that's the version she would have killed to meet, if she had just held on. But that man, the one you are now, doesn't look back. He doesn't wonder if she misses him. He knows she does. He doesn't check her page. He doesn't decode her posts. Because he's too busy living the story she no longer has a role in. And that story? It's just getting started. There's a quiet kind of dominance that few men ever tap into. It's not about being loud. It's not about flexing what you have. It's about moving through the world like you know who you are. Like you don't need anyone to remind you. And when a woman watches the man she once had develop that energy, it doesn't just sting. It rewrites the way she sees herself. She'll start to remember the little things. The way you looked at her without speaking, the way your presence made her feel safe without needing to say a word. But now, that presence is gone. And she'll start noticing how no one else matches it. No one else holds space like you did. No one else makes her feel that quiet electricity. And it's not because you're trying to make her feel it. It's because you're finally embodying what most men never reach: self-possession. You've reclaimed every part of yourself that was fragmented in the aftermath. Your mind is sharper, your body's stronger, your standards are higher. You no longer explain yourself because your results speak for you. That kind of transformation, it haunts a woman. Because she knows she had front row seats to a man who was still becoming, and she chose to leave before the best part. This is where her internal conflict begins. She'll try to justify it. Tell herself you've changed too much. Convince herself she left for the right reasons. But every time she sees that glint in your eye, that calm you didn't used to have, the illusion starts to break. And when you walk into a room now, you don't need to prove anything. You are the room. You are the standard. And suddenly she realizes you're not accessible anymore. That's the moment where her regret becomes panic. Because now she's not just mourning the past, and she's locked out of the present. And that new woman who walks beside you, she's not guessing. She's not insecure. She's not holding on by a thread. She's receiving the man you fought to become. But you're not doing this for them, you're doing it because you finally get it. You finally understand what Neil Strauss, David Dida, and all the greats of masculine development have pointed at. Women don't fall for men who chase. They fall for men who lead, men who are rooted, not rushed, men who don't orbit women because they've built their own gravity. And now that you've done that, now that your life has momentum, her place in it is no longer guaranteed, and she knows it. So she'll drop hints. She'll test the waters. A like here, a message there. Maybe she shows up where she knows you'll be. Not to reconnect, but to see if she still has access, if your eyes still soften when you see her, if there's still a crack in your armor. But she's too late, because by now, you've realized something she never did. You were the upgrade. You were the rare one. You were the man in progress, not the man in need. And now, you're finished being built. And that version of you, she'll never touch him again. It's fascinating how silence can scream louder than any argument. When a man stops explaining himself, when he stops trying to convince someone of his worth, something shifts. Not just in her perception of him, but in his perception of himself. Because what begins as heartbreak eventually becomes clarity. And in that clarity, a new kind of power is born. You begin to see things as they are, not through the fog of hope, but through the lens of truth. You realize you weren't just missing her. You were missing who you thought she was. And that's the most painful part to accept. That sometimes we fall in love with potential, not reality. But when you finally let go of that illusion, you get your energy back. You stop trying to rewrite the past and start designing a future that has nothing to do with regret and everything to do with growth. You stop hoping she'll return, and instead you begin to attract people who recognize you without having to lose you first. That's the real plot twist. She thought you'd wait. That's why she felt so sure walking away. She assumed you'd always be there because that's how it was in the beginning. Always available, always forgiving, always trying to make it work. But now, the version of you that's emerged no longer waits. He chooses, he filters, he moves with intent. And intent is what makes a man dangerous, in the best way. Because when you move with purpose, people can feel it. Women feel it. You're no longer chasing beauty. You're creating legacy. You're not scrolling through profiles hoping to fill a void. You're locked in. You're built different. You're too focused to chase what doesn't add value. And now, she's left watching. Watching you level up. Watching your name pop up in conversations she's not part of. Watching the version of you she once had become the kind of man everyone now wants. There's no anger in you anymore. That's what makes it more impactful. You're not bitter. You're not resentful. You're simply gone. Not physically, but energetically. She could reach out, but she knows the connection isn't the same. It's not something a message can fix. Because while she was healing through distraction, you were healing through transformation. And that kind of healing, it's irreversible. She might still look amazing. She might still draw attention. But deep down, she knows attention doesn't equal access. Not anymore. Not with you. Because men like you, men who've gone through the fire and didn't come out begging, you can't be impressed by surface anymore. You've seen what it's like to give your all and get crumbs. You've seen what it's like to love someone who only loved the version of you that needed them. And now, you only move toward depth, toward connection, toward someone who sees you before they lose you. And the irony? That's what she was hoping you'd become. She just never imagined you'd become it. Without her. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to throw shade. The proof is in the way you carry yourself, in the women you attract now, in the silence you hold like a weapon, in the fact that you no longer seek closure, because you gave it to yourself. And that is the moment she realizes what she really lost. And that realization, it doesn't explode like thunder. It creeps in slowly, in the quiet moments, in the stillness when no one's there to distract her, when the attention fades, when the excitement of something new wears off, when she's left alone with her thoughts. That's when the truth hits. She didn't just lose you. She lost the chance to grow beside you. She lost the opportunity to witness the man you were becoming. But by now, that man is no longer accessible. Not out of spite, not because you're playing games, but because you've evolved beyond needing to be understood by someone who once walked away. You've reclaimed your identity. You've tapped into your true power. And that's something no one can take from you. This is the new version of you, grounded, focused, unapologetic. You don't chase, you attract, you don't beg, you build, you don't look back, because what's coming is far greater than what's gone. If this message hit home for you, if it reminded you of the strength you forgot you had, then I want you to do something. Drop a comment, tell your story, or tag a brother who needs to hear this. Every share spreads this message further. Every like tells the algorithm that more men need this truth. And if you're still on your journey, keep going. Stay focused, keep your standards high and your energy sacred. Because the man you're becoming, the one who commands silence, who walks with purpose, who doesn't settle, he's already unforgettable. Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on notifications. Join this movement. Because this isn't just content. This is a brotherhood. And you're exactly where you need to be. Your story is just getting started. Don't miss it.